Welcome to Glen Ferris Inn with Dining with Dan and Becky. And tonight, as my guest, is Adam Toney and his son Charlie Toney. They own C. Adam Toney's Tire, and they have a very large business, 5 stores in Fayette County. Do you have any in any other kind of counties?
Oh yeah, I'm up in Nicholas County, Summersville.
That's right.
Have 2 stores in Beckley, 2 stores in Raleigh County. Our main warehouse is a store in Oak Hill, and then we have a store down at Hurricane.
They do 90% of the tires that I use on my vehicles, and I have about 25 trucks running up and down the road all over in West Virginia, and we buy a lot of tires, and we appreciate the C. Adam Toney's business because they really help us with our tire needs, and we appreciate them. And Adam's been a friend of mine for 30, 40 years when I used to teach school up at Fayetteville High School, and of course been in business here for many, many years, and we appreciate their good business and their success in their business, and we like to use local people for our needs. So we welcome you to the Glen Ferris Inn, you and your son, and I hope we get a good meal tonight. Becky hasn't failed me yet, but she's not burnt too many, so we're hoping that she didn't burn our meal tonight.
Well, we've heard a lot about it, so we were excited to come.
Well,
when you called me last week, and Charlie he and his son was already committed, and I forgot about them going bowling. They went out to Vegas to bowl in a national tournament. And that's I heard so much about Becky's food, and then we watched the show. I watch the show regularly, and see a lot of people on there, and so I told you that we couldn't make it, but immediately I says about a rain check.
Yes, sir. And
you didn't have to invite me twice. I invited myself at second chance.
Well, we hope that you have a good meal tonight.
I'm sure we will.
All right. Well, let's go back in the kitchen and see what Becky's made up for us tonight, and I'm sure she's done a good job. All right.
Welcome to Dining with Dan and Becky at the Glen Ferris Inn, and welcome to our lovely kitchen at the inn. Tonight for Dan's dinner party, he picked out a menu that consists of coleslaw, which will be the first time that we have made this on the show, grilled trout, fried green tomatoes, creamed peas and potatoes, and for dessert we're going to do an apple slab. All right, now, remember, the most important thing that you do besides deciding what your menu is deciding the order in which you're going to prepare them. Coleslaw doesn't take much time, but it needs to be refrigerated so the flavors mingle. Grilled trout doesn't take much time because ours is butterflied and boneless. Fried green tomatoes, well, that can take as much time as you want or as little. And then the cream peas and potatoes take some time. So I think what we're going to get started on is our apple slab. Now, doing an apple slab, it's just like making an apple cobbler, but with a frosting on the top of it. So what we're going to do is make our apple filling for the cobbler part first. So let me get our apples. Now, these are apples that were frozen that Dan bought for me on a hunting trip. And it is really fun peeling a bushel of apples and slicing them and then freezing them. So what we're going to do is turn on our fire and let this heat up. So let me turn it down. I do not want it to stick. Okay, now while that's simmering, I will get the rest of the ingredients that we're going to put in here to make it into a pie filling. So here we go. All right, in this bowl we have got 1.5 cups of sugar and 1/2 cup of flour. And you want the sugar to sweeten it because these Granny Smith cooking apples or a comparative cooking apple can be fairly tart. But since this is a slab that's going to have a frosting on it, you do not want to over sweeten it. So we're going to mix the flour in the sugar so that the flour will dissolve fairly well and not make clumps. Very nice. All right, now I have a tablespoon of cinnamon and I'm just going to mix it randomly in this. Now I like cinnamon on my dishes so well that if I weren't doing the slab with the extra frosting on it, I would have probably just sprinkled cinnamon on the top of it. That's how I do my cinnamon rolls. I butter the bread, put sugar, and then pure cinnamon because I don't want a pale cinnamon coat. When you like cinnamon, you like it. Okay, now we have got the thickener, the sweetener, and the spice ready for our apple pie filling. So let's take a minute and just look at the apples and turn them. You want this to bubble. You do not have to add liquid because as your apples cook, just like with an apple butter, they will bring out a liquid in them. Boy, it's already got a lot of liquid in this. Okay. Now, when you're making your filling, you do not want to cook the apples all the way. All you want to do is parboil them and make them so that your other ingredients are mixed uniformly in it because you still have to bake this off. Now this is doing fine. We've got a nice coat of apple juice in the bottom. That's really going to make our filling delicious. So let's get back to work. Now, just like an apple cobbler on your apple slab, you're going to have to do a pie crust. So let's get everything started for it. You will need 2 cups of flour, 3/4 cup of a solid shortening. Please do not try to make your breads, your yeast bread, or your pie crust out of a liquid shortening because it just will not turn out right. Let's get back to this and give it just a little bit of a stir. And as soon as this starts bubbling, we will add our other ingredients to it, and then we will just turn it off and let it wait until we have our pie crust ready. Now that is nice. Reminds you almost of Grandma's fried apples. Okay, now what you want to do is mix your shortening in with your flour. To do this, you can get a pastry blender. You can cut it in with 2 knives. You can put it in a food processor. I prefer using my hands so I can feel the texture. Now, my hands are, of course, freshly washed, in fact, scrubbed about 4 times. And what you do, you grab up your flour, your shortening, and you rub it together. And you do this until there are no lumps of shortening left and that everything, your flour mixture, looks like small peas. It's just very small crumbs. Now, there are so many recipes out there that I know you will not have problems finding one. This one is fairly simple. You use 2 cups of flour, 3/4 cup of solid shortening. You're going to use salt, sugar, which I need to add now. I did well, didn't I? Okay. And the last thing you're going to do is add an equal amount of water. Now, I prefer this because once you add all of that water, you get a dough that's just a little bit more stiff than a biscuit dough. I do not like the recipes where what you do is add 2 tablespoons of water and spend forever trying to mix it in and make a dough, and then finding out that it is so tough that you can't work it. Tastes good though, but you know, I prefer something that tastes good that's easier to fix. So at this point, I have got the dough for the crust of the cobbler part of this recipe. So let me wash my hands. I'll be right back and we will finish our filling and roll out our dough. Hold on just a minute. Okay, I think our apples are soft enough where we can add the thickener, and let's get that done, and then we are going to put it on very low and just let it simmer. You want to make sure this is stirred up pretty good. It is going to thicken the apple juices that cooked out of the apples, plus sweeten it. Oh, and of course spice it because we put a mountain of cinnamon in it. And you do not want to put too much because it's going to cook down, and you don't want it to be extremely hard. So here we are. It's thickened, it's sweetened, and it's spiced up. And you can make your own combination of apple pie spices if you wish. I just like straight cinnamon, so of course that's what I use. But you can add a little bit of allspice and nutmeg to it, and it just gives it a slightly different taste. So let's hurry up and get our pie crust in that cobbler pan so that we can get it in the oven. Then we'll be ready for step 2. All right, let's get some flour. Get that out of the way. Sprinkle your working surface liberally. Take half of your dough because you're going to use half for the bottom and half for the top. Now remember, as I always say, if you are starting with a circle, you want to start with a ball and push it down. If you're making a large cobbler in a rectangular pan, you want to start with a rectangle. And since I am working with a square, I'm going to try to square it up. But we know that the chances of my keeping it that way are slim to none because I don't know. I guess I'm just not talented in that area. So I've got pretty much of a square. We're going to put it in our square baking pan, casserole dish, prep pan, the thing that is absolutely the most serviceable pan in any restaurant in this country, and we're going to start rolling it out. I'm going to do 2 one way, I'm going to do 2 the other way. Then from then on out you can do 2. Whoops, sticking a little bit. Make sure you do not work that flour in. It'll make your dough tough, and any flour you add at this point is going to be surface only. Now you want this to be a couple large inches larger than what your pan is. All right, let's see where we are. Yeah, I think that'll work. And what you're going to do, you're going to take your dough and fold it in half. I'm going to sprinkle some flour on it. Fold it in half the other way. Sprinkle some flour on it, because if you notice from my working surface, all the flour is off of this. You're going to lay the corner of your folded pie crust in the center. And there we go. All right, we're going to straighten it up as we can. Try to get it to stick up on the sides. I guess I should have made it at 1 inch longer and 1 inch wider. Okay, let's just take it out and do it again. One thing about pie crust, you can always roll it out one more time. So let's get rid of that tear, sprinkle. Now, we want to make it a little bit larger, a little bit wider. And don't be afraid of messing with your pie crust. I mean, the worst thing that's going to happen is that you're going to have to throw it away. And in the course of events, 2 cups of flour, if you've got a 25-pound bag, isn't going to hurt you much. All right, now that is much better. All right, it's long enough to where it's hanging over the edges of the pan. You're going to smooth it down. Try not to tear it because this is very delicate dough. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is take our apple pie filling that has been seasoned, sweetened, and thickened, and we are going to put it in our pan. Smell that cinnamon. Well, I guess you can't, but I sure can. Smells good. All right, we're going to move this out of the way. We're going to sprinkle a little bit more flour. We're going to get our other half of the dough that's left in the bowl. Now again, if you're making a round pie crust, you want to start out with the ball. All right, we want to start out with a baby rectangle, even a square. So what we're going to start out with is a squarish lump of dough. Flour on the top, flour on the bottom, and let's get it rolled out. Now, since I do not have to have this hanging around the sides, I do not have to make it as large. So, let's All right, you're going to fold it into quarters again. And this time, Bruce, could I have a knife to trim this with, please? Okay, there you are. Now you're going to lift it and press the crust down to where it's laying evenly on your filling. And in this case, of course, since we're doing an apple slab, it is an apple slab filling. All right, now you're going to just neaten up the edges and we will be ready to go. All right, so we're going to cut this up all the way around. Now, the one thing I do not like is a thick border on my cobbler, and I'm the very same with the apple slab. I cut it up about 1/2 inch from the level or the surface of the apples or whatever filling I'm using. And then I'm going to make a diagonal X here just to pretty it up and give a space for steam to escape. And then I'm going to press the 2 layers of dough together and just make a little bit of a border crust. Now, if I were leaving it at this, an old-fashioned apple cobbler, I would put evaporated milk, or I'd put melted sugar and butter, which is what I prefer, and or even egg whites mixed with water. So let's get this finished. We're going to pop it in the oven, bake it about 350 for about 35 minutes. Then we'll let it cool a little bit, and then we're going to put the frosting on it that makes it a slab. Now look at that. Isn't that very attractive? Ah, just nice for a Sunday dinner. All right, set the timer for 30, 350, power level 9. So let's get this mess cleaned up, and then we will go on to our next product. You guys go get something to drink and relax a little bit, and I will be right back. We're going to start our coleslaw next. You want to start out with 6 cups of grated cabbage. Now this can be green cabbage or a combination of green and red. You want 1/2 cup of grated carrots. Now what we're going to do is mix this together so that it's more or less uniform. And you're going to be mixing together a lot of things with this today. So even if you don't get it uniform, it will before we're through. So, all right. Now I'm just going to leave that there for a minute. Then you're going to take a bowl and you're going to make your coleslaw dressing. We're going to use heavy mayonnaise. Sweet pickle juice. Now you can do this with cider vinegar, but the sweet pickle juice just gives it such a delightful taste. Then we have sugar, white pepper. Whoops, this was the sugar, that was the salt. And we're going to mix that up first before we add the evaporated milk. Now the reason we do this is that the pickle juice will make the evaporated milk curdle. Let me get something better. And we do not want curds in our salad dressing. So we're going to mix this till the vinegar is mixed in. It really smells good. And then we're going to add our evaporated milk. And here we are. Now, if this isn't enough dressing to make our slaw as wet as we want, it's no big deal to add a little bit more to it to mix up some more. This is very similar to the dressing that I use for my potato salad and my macaroni salad. So what I'm going to do is make a well, and I am going to add all of this in one fell swoop. And you're going to need to stir this up with something a little bit more substantial than a spatula. So I'm going to go back to a metal spoon. And all you do is pull the coleslaw in from the outside of the bowl, starting in the center, just working it in the dressing that you have made a well for in the center of this. Boy, that smells good. All right. So all we have to do now is mix it, then we're going to cover it and then put it in the refrigerator to chill. Now we have 2 or 3 more things to fix. We have got the cream peas and potatoes. We've got the fried green tomatoes and the trout. Because the trout, after it is deboned and butterflied, is such a skinny fish, I'm going to save it until last. Okay, we have just about a perfect amount of salad dressing. And let's scrape this off. Don't want to lose any of it. And here we are. Okay, this is our Glen Ferris Inn coleslaw. It has a dressing that I have never made any better than this, regardless of what recipe I use or what coleslaw dressing I buy. This is a nice recipe. Okay. All right, welcome back. We are ready to start our cream peas and potatoes. Now, to get the potatoes, I ran up to this little store at Beckey that has a lot of farm ingredients from a farmer's market in it. So I picked up new baby potatoes, and that is where I get the yellow-eyed beans that I use for my family. I have just never seen them anywhere in southern West Virginia, but they may be available and I just don't know about it. But they have a lot of unique jams and jellies and pickles that are homemade. They have items from various farmers market that they go to stock their store with, and one of them are the baby potatoes. So I picked up those for us. Now, to make your cream peas and potatoes, you want your potatoes to boil by themselves for probably 3 to 5 minutes. And then you add your peas to it. The peas will boil up faster and cook faster than the potatoes, and then they will start breaking apart, and no one wants that. You want your peas still to be slightly crisp. I tried to seed a few of the pods to get the baby peas out of it, and they were just too small, and so we have no choice but to use the pods. I washed and scrubbed the baby potatoes rather well. I cut out any little spots or roots that may be left on them, and then I cut them in half because I didn't want to have to wait a half hour to 45 minutes to cook the baby potatoes. So let's let those heat, and we're going to go ahead and start looking at our fried green tomatoes. So let me get all of this out of the way while they cook, and I will be right back. Okay, welcome back. We have our potatoes for the creamed peas and potatoes on the back burner simmering. And on the front, we have got a combination of olive oil and canola oil for us to use for our fried green tomatoes. We have got water to dip our tomatoes in. We have got a dredge, which is 50% all-purpose flour and 50% cornmeal. And last but not least, we have got green tomatoes from Dan's garden. They were so pretty, he just had to have fried green tomatoes tonight. So I hope I do a credible job with them. Now, most people doing the fried green tomatoes have a liquid that they put them in, and then their flour or their cornbread and their cornmeal, and then they fry them, or breadcrumbs. You can use milk, you can use eggs, you can use buttermilk. Other people twice dip them like they would with a southern fried chicken. They put them in their flour, then their liquid, and then in their bread coating. And all of those are okay. Dan said he did not want a thick, crisp coating on them, so we are going to try to give Dan what he wants. Now, I am going to dip my green tomato in water so that the water will stick to the tomato and the flour will stick to the water. And our water should not allow it to get too awfully thick and crisp. So we're going to turn it and put it in the skillet. Now be careful doing this, because you know as well as I do, most grease burns happen either when you put it in or you take it out. And one thing about it, you do not want a burn yourself. And if you're teaching your children how to cook, or your grandchildren, you definitely do not want them burning. So let's fill up this, then we will season it, turn it, and then take it out. Dan's garden so far this year has been a source of great joy. I have been able to get cucumbers to make granny salads. I've made 3 different kinds of squash casseroles and prepared squash. I have done fried green tomatoes, regular green tomatoes, Oh, and a mountain of green onions. And I just dearly love green onions out of a garden. All right, let me get a turner to turn this, and I'll be right back. Just be patient a minute. Okay, now be careful turning it. You do not want to get burnt. You want these to be golden brown. And if you remember, I have a hot spot on this stove that is on that side. So that is where we need to start turning them. And these aren't quite ready, but those definitely are. So I'm going to bring these down here and scooch those up. There. All right, let's get the next pan ready. Dip it in water. Then in our cornmeal flour mixture. Now, my mama used to fix the fried green tomatoes quite often, but I had never had squash prepared fried this way until I married Dan. Our squashes we always fixed either a cooked dish with onions and butter and the green onions and seasonings, or we made a casserole out of it. So I was a little bit surprised when I found out that you could do fried squash. So, let me get these in. Now remember, the most dangerous time for burns is putting in, taking out. When I am frying something, I do not even allow my grandchildren in the kitchen. Accidents can happen. They happen all the time. And all the regret in the world doesn't take one back. Okay. And there we are. And we are almost through with this. So for the last batch, all right, green tomato in the water, in the cornmeal and flour. Finish this up. Whoops. And our last one. Well, what have I done to this fire? Okay, that should be about right. Now we're going to turn that one over and let it get a little bit more brown on the other side. I personally think pan frying is a time-consuming operation, but I don't want to mess with the deep fryer at my house, not even the Fry Baby. I don't want to have to waste all of that oil and throw it away after every use, and I surely don't want to take a chance on one of the kids pulling it over on them. So I'm stuck with pan frying forever. All right, there's one more. Well, now that wasn't ready to be turned. Let's load it up. And we've got one more tomato. Oops. Mark my words, Dan's going to come in here and say, well, what are you burning now? And it isn't my burning anything. It is the flour and cornmeal in the bottom of the skillet that is doing the burning, not me. But that's all right. That one's ready to turn. And that one is ready to turn. Those are almost ready. Oh, I have one more. Okay, here are our fried green tomatoes. They are not burnt. You guys can all be my witnesses, but the flour in the bottom of that skillet sure did get a little bit crisp and brown. Okay, I'm going to put these under the heat lamp to keep them warm while we finish the potatoes and peas. So let me go. And here we are, our sugar snap peas. Our potatoes have been boiling for 5 to 7 minutes. I am going to add these and let them boil 4 to 5 more minutes. You do not want these to start breaking down, because then the pod will turn a sickening dark brownish green color, and it just isn't as good. So let's give that a stir. I hope Dan really appreciates these. Those potatoes are still crisp, and that's how he likes them. So we're going to give them 3 to 6 minutes, and then we will finish processing these. Okay, let's get our cobbler out. Oh my goodness gracious. You guys should be here to smell this. The crust is light brown. Exactly how we want it. The only thing is, as you can tell, I did not get the sides sealed good enough on one half, and that's just a part of life. Now we're going to let this cool a little bit, and then we're going to frost it. So let's get that out of the way, and let's move these back. Turn this down. and we're going to go look at the trout. So. The trout that we serve at the inn is deboned and butterflied. Let me get a glove on. They are 7 to 9 ounce portion sizes, and they are very nice specimens. Danny loves trout, and I fix it for him from time to time. Now what we're going to do with this, we are going to brush it with butter. We're going to sprinkle Old Bay sauce on it and a little bit of paprika, and then we are going to grill it. And I'm going to do one in a pan to show you how we do it, and then I'm going to let Bruce finish the others. So let me get a fairly good size skillet. I will be right back. And when we're preparing our trout, the first thing we do is put it raw side or bare side down on the grill. And we let it cook until it's almost done. Then we turn it over and cook the other side. Notice how thin it is. It is not skinless, but it is definitely boneless. All right, I think I can turn that fire down a little bit. And I can turn this one completely off. The only thing that we season it with is a mixture of Old Bay, paprika, and we may or may not use parsley. In olden days, before we practiced with Old Bay, we would make our own seasoning mix for this using a salmon seasoning, paprika, a touch of garlic, a touch of onion powder, and that is how we would make our trout. Now our other ways of doing it are simply flour it and fry it. We can do a southern fried trout with doing the 3 dippings, and we can also do the trout Florentine. We also have done the herb white wine sauce, and we have done trout almondine. My son-in-law loves the trout almondine. The first side of our trout is ready, so we are ready to turn it. Oh boy, maybe I should have had a little bit more oil, but I just do not like doing that. And there we are, all but done. And what we're going to do now is that we're going to sprinkle it with Old Bay to taste. Okay. And then we are going to put our paprika on it. And then I would add a little bit of parsley mashed up, just to give it just a little bit more of a difference in color and make it a little bit more appealing. So there we are. You've got one grilled trout, and Bruce is going to do the rest, but they'll all be fixed like this. When you're doing any fish, what you want to do is to make sure that it is white. Notice that it's white on both sides and all the way through. Here I've got a little pink collar, and Bruce will continue cooking this on the flat top as he grills the others. And let's finish our potatoes, then we will do our frosting, and then guys, we'll go visit Dan and his guests. All right, now we have 2 cups of potato water in here. We have got our butter. I am going to add our salt and pepper. Now, since we have the potato water, which makes all the potatoes taste a little bit better, we are going to add pure evaporated milk. This is 1 cup, 2 cups of potato water, and we have that. Be real careful and don't break up those peas, guys, when you're stirring this. Now, the last thing that we have to add, we have all of our seasonings, we have all of our liquids, we have our oils, is that we're going to thicken this. So I'm going to push everything apart and make a little bit of a well, and I am going to add my flour. Stir it up vigorously, and we're going to add a little bit more. If it's one thing I love, it's creamed peas and potatoes. Now with this, it is almost impossible to use a whisk to make sure you get the lumps out. So what you want to do is to push the potatoes out of the way, add your flour, and then stir rapidly. All right, now, as soon as this thickens up, we will make sure that all of our potatoes and our peas are covered with the thick liquid, and taste it, make sure it has enough salt and pepper in it, and then that is it. As they say, c'est la vie. All right, let me stir it just a little bit more. Oh, I'm slowly mashing these. But it's got to heat up to simmering in order for it to thicken. This is not quite like a roux and not quite like a slurry, but it's where you just use your flour as a thickening agent. You could have used cornstarch, but the flour tastes a little better. So there we are. Let me put that here. And last thing we're going to do is what? 2 remembers. We're going to make the frosting for our apple slab. So if you'll let me have just 1 minute to pull my ingredients for that together, we will get that done, and I will be right back. All right, welcome back. We are in the middle of, well, at the beginning, middle's an exaggeration, fixing the frosting for our apple slab cake. Now this was Grandma Hill's favorite frosting in the world, that she used it for her apple dumplings, her apple turnovers. If it had the word apple in it, she used this frosting. And what you're going to do, you're going to start out with your butter, and you are going to add evaporated milk. And you don't want to add too much of this. There, that was about 1/4 cup. All right, we're going to let it heat until it's boiling. We're going to add just a very few drops of our vanilla, because we want the butter and the milk to give this the flavor, not the vanilla. And it does not take much. And it is now boiling, so we're going to turn down the fire. All right, so here we are, last stage. Confectioner's sugar, and we're going to add it a little bit at a time and then whisk. This is the hardest thing to get lumps of sugar out of that I have ever attempted. I keep saying I'm going to buy me a plastic whisk, but I just haven't gotten to it. Now, the nice thing about this, if you do not have enough to completely cover whatever you're going to frost, all you have to do is add a little bit more evaporated milk and a little bit more sugar till you get the quantity that you want. All right, so we're going to put that back on the fire. Let's add some more sugar. Now that shouldn't take too much, that's a fact. Now this isn't a traditional cake frosting. Its consistency is between that of a glaze and that of a frosting. So we're going to try to get these lumps out because Danny will tease me to death if I don't. And let's add a little bit more confectioner's sugar. I do not know if that is enough. I may add a little bit more evaporated milk. There. Now that should do it. Yes, that is going to do it perfectly. My mother never used a sifter, and she had a cabinet with the sifter built in, the old-fashioned cupboard cabinet, kitchen cabinets from the time, and that is what she used, and I just never got used to using a hand sifter. We have several, but all right, here we are. Now, isn't that just a perfect glaze frosting? So we're going to bring it over here. And we are going to and you can see those lumps. Oh well. All right, now I'm going to continue turning this around and around till it hardens a little bit and it doesn't all sink in the middle. So here we are, one apple slab. Doesn't that just look absolutely marvelous, even though it has lumps of confectioner's sugar on it? Oh well, sometimes that's what happens. All right, let's go see what Dan is up to in the dining room and meet his guests. So I will see you out there.
Well, Becky, what have you made for us this evening?
Well, we're going to do a tossed salad because I always do a salad of some sort. And then I decided since we're doing fish that we need coleslaw, so I made coleslaw too.
Oh,
so this
so
will
we
be
got
known
two
as
salads?
the night of salads, yes.
Okay.
All right, and then we're going to do fried trout. Adam, do you like trout?
Oh my, yes, definitely.
Okay.
Okay.
I love it.
Okay, good. And then we're doing fried green tomatoes, and I picked the tomatoes out of Dan's garden.
Well, good.
He's proud of his garden.
Yeah, I have a $5,000 garden. I'll explain that later.
And then we're doing creamed sugar snap peas and potatoes.
Okay.
And then for dessert, we're doing an apple slab.
Are they baby potatoes?
They are baby potatoes. I went to the store in Beckwith. Are you all familiar with the store?
The store in
Store.
Beckwith.
In
Yes.
Beckwith. Yeah, just
called.
called the store.
The store,
And
yes.
they go to a lot of farmers markets within a 4 or 5 hour drive and get fresh produce and bring it up. And that's where I love yellow-eyed beans. If I'm addicted to anything at all, it's that. I can eat them for forever. And to the best of my knowledge, they're the only store that I know of around here that carries yellow eyes. And when I stopped in there the other day to get some, they had baby potatoes. So I
so we
drove
got baby
all the way
potatoes.
back and got baby
Now,
potatoes.
what was that dessert that kind of went over my head there?
An apple slab.
An apple slab. Okay.
You owe that to Andrea. All it is an old-fashioned apple cobbler with the extra cinnamon in it, and then you put almost like a frosting / glaze on the top.
Okay.
And I use your mama's recipe for the glaze that she puts on her apple dumplings.
Okay, well, you're starving me to death, though. We need to get on with it
All
here.
right.
Call the girls.
Okay, let me go get the girls.
Okay. Here we go.
Thank you. I'm greedy. I got 2,000 islands.
Oh my. Well, I got blue cheese. Looks like we've got a little bit of everything in that salad. We got Italian and blue cheese.
Oh yeah, I like the mixture.
I see.
I've never tried that mixture. I bet it is good.
That blue cheese is pretty thick, so you'll have to spoon it out of there.
I'm going to eat roll with mine instead of crackers.
The vegetables look pretty fresh, Becky.
Well, thank you, Danny.
Oh, I was going to explain to you about my garden. What I did, I decided to build a wall around the back of my hillside. So when I built that wall, I decided to put topsoil in behind the wall and make a little raised garden type thing. And the wall cost me about $5,000. I got it all done. It's a pretty good long wall, you know. So I put about 100 plants out, and so far these vegetables have cost me $5,000. I'm not coming out on this deal here.
You'll see a profit within 10 to 15 years.
Yeah,
so.
I'm hoping that eventually I'll make some money off my wall on all my vegetables. But they have done excellent this year. We've had a really good year with our planting. We've got all kinds of tomatoes and squash and peppers. We've got about everything.
Now these cucumbers are out of Dan's garden. And he's getting a lot of squash. I'm running out of new squash recipes. So I guess I'm going to have to start being really creative.
I love squash.
Oh, what they do.
Yeah, it's my favorite.
I tried to get her to make some squash this evening. I said, no, I don't want any more squash. We got all kinds of stuff to eat. And she was going to make a squash casserole, which is very good.
I developed that recipe using one that I developed. The only one I have fixed that I didn't care for was a squash souffle, and I just can't do it.
The squash what?
Souffle, where you beat the egg whites and they're
I see.
Well,
stiff. And
this salad here, you can't buy that in a restaurant nowhere. I've never seen with all this different variety. You must have at least 5 or 6, maybe 7 or 8 different vegetables in here.
Yeah, there's spinach, I think, and there's onions, 2 different types of onions, I think, in there, and some peppers. Are the peppers out of my garden too? Mm-hmm. Okay, good.
well, now on the lettuce, it's a mixture of iceberg and spring mix, and spring mix has a lot of different varieties in it.
I must have, I don't know, 100 different cucumber plants, and they're all producing, and we had a whole basket of cucumbers. So, but I like the cucumbers cut up real small, so that I can eat those as well. I don't like them great big slices of them, but Becky does a real good job of making these salads.
Well, I fixed him a granny salad the other day with onions, his green onions from his garden, cucumbers from his garden, and then he got 1 little red tomato, so I cut that up into cubes and mixed it all together with Italian dressing and let it set for 5 or 6 hours before I served it, and it was really good.
I like that as well, those little
Granny salad?
salads that you cut up real small, and it doesn't have lettuce in it, it just has onions and cucumbers. What else did it have in it?
Tomatoes.
Tomatoes. and then use Italian type salad dressing.
Right.
And then let it marinate overnight. It's really good. This
Now, you
roll's
can use-
good too, Becky.
Well, thank
Did
you,
you
Danny.
make rolls today?
No, I didn't. Jeff did.
Oh.
Now, next week, I'm going to teach Miguel how to make rolls.
Okay.
And then I'm going to do Connor. And then I am going to do Rachel and Maya. And when our
So they all know how to make bread.
So they all know how to make bread.
Yeah.
And when our other grandson Jack gets here, I'll teach him how to make bread and breadsticks.
Oh, I see.
But, you
Well,
know,
you'll be surprised the amount of kids today that if you ask them to make rolls, they wouldn't have a clue.
Well, no.
And,
No way.
And it's important that I feel that the parents and the grandparents teach their kids as much about things that you do at home, simple things like wiring a switch, doing their laundry. You know.
well, now, my grandkids that are visiting us can do their laundry. And Rachel can follow any recipe in any cookbook. She may not be familiar with it. She may not have made it before.
You mean she can read, huh?
She can read. Well,
Oh, that's good.
she understands
That's
the
positive.
concepts. Yeah, I'm going to positive you.
Well, I mean, these are important things for kids, and for some reason today we're not getting this to the kids.
Well,
You know,
because
all they
in
want to do
today's
is use their two thumbs.
well,
true.
but in today's society, not only does the father work, but the mother works.
That's true.
And when she comes home, here she is with this whole bunch of housework and prepping dinner and getting it ready. And so it's now become a dinner of convenience instead of a dinner from scratch.
I understand that.
And you can't blame them. I mean,
understand.
it's very hard being a working mother.
That's true. But you managed to do it very well.
Well,
So,
my kids, I don't know, maybe I intimidated them. But,
maybe.
but
Just
they,
like you did your students, you intimidate them. That's what they called you, the intimidator.
the intimidator, huh?
Right. Math teacher, she was a math
They
teacher.
called me ma'am.
She taught math, science, and physics at the local high schools, Golly Ridge and Valley, and
And when I started out, I was in middle school.
in middle school.
Well, you
And-
would have been one of my favorites because math was my favorite subject. I love math.
I did too.
I ended up teaching math and physics and earth science and astronomy. And my poor little astronomy kids, I made them memorize a map of the moon. And every day we'd spend the first 10 minutes of class going over the map of the moon. And at first they really complained. And then I just told them, listen guys, when you're about 30 and you're out in your yard stargazing and your kids are there and you say, look at that, that's the ocean of storms. Man once walked there. I said, now how cool is that? And so they got it to the point where they could draw a map of the moon and label all of the main features. I was very proud of them.
Well, what's coming up next, Becky,
Well-
after our salad?
We're going to get our main entree, which is the trout, the fried green tomatoes, the cream peas and potatoes,
Okay.
and the coleslaw. We can't
And the
forget-
coleslaw. Well, I thought I was going to have coleslaw instead of salad. I didn't realize I was having a salad,
Well,
but
I sort of requested both.
okay. All right.
I mean, coleslaw is one salad that you eat with your meal.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. Well, let's
I mean,
have it
it's
when we
not
can.
like an appetizer salad, like the tossed salad.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Oh my. Goodness gracious, Becky, there's no way I can eat all this.
I know, that's why you, that's why you told me not to do the squash casserole.
Okay. All right, guys, let's try to
This looks great.
go ahead and dig in and let's see what it tastes like.
Well, taste my coleslaw first. This is the recipe out of the White Cookbook.
Okay.
Needs a little bit more salt, doesn't it?
It's all right. I'm gonna eat a piece of this fish, see what it tastes like.
Very good.
You like that?
It is good.
Very good.
That's a mixture of Old Bay and paprika.
My wife's gonna be jealous about these fried green tomatoes. She loves them.
Oh my goodness.
Now you just put flour and cornmeal on the tomatoes?
Right.
Okay,
And I
good.
fried them in a 50% canola and olive oil blend. And then, of course, salt and pepper. It was flour and cornmeal. I don't know what I said, but that's what it was supposed to be.
It's very good.
Well, good.
Very good.
I love that little bit of tart taste that has, to it, but it's really delicious.
Well, I think everything I've got needs more salt today.
Well, we have salt somewhere.
Well,
Try these potatoes now. And the peas.
I tried to shell these peas, but they were so small that they would be lost.
I see. Becky, you made way too much for me. Goodness gracious.
And that's why you only got 3 pieces of fried green tomato.
I see. Okay. Well, they're very rich. I love the taste of these tomatoes.
Yeah, they're very good.
Adam said he was going to comment on it, but he doesn't have time. He's got to eat this meal.
Mash. I'm gonna have to copy you. I don't think I can eat it all either. But I'm gonna give it a good try.
Me too. I'm going to try it.
Well, you guys need to save some room for that apple slab.
Oh,
Oh,
my,
my
I forgot
goodness.
about that apple slab. Well, I told you earlier, Becky, that I came here to eat, but I also enjoyed the view. We got a beautiful view here at the inn.
We certainly do.
The sun is shining so pretty, and the river is starting to clear from the rains we've had.
Starting to
Does
settle
Tommy
down.
ever take pictures of the falls out there, the water?
Every once in a while, I have to twist his arm to get him to take pictures of the scenery. He
Yeah.
always wants to take pictures of the geese and stuff out there. You see all the geese over there on the falls? There must be 100 of them out there.
Yeah, that's a great view, great setting.
That's where we got this trout. No, not really.
We'll go ask if you caught the trout thing.
No. We have a supplier. Who do you get this one from?
Robert.
From Buzz
No, I
Food?
get this one from U.S. Foods.
U.S. Foods, I'm
Yes.
sorry.
Well, they're good food service.
We have 2 really
These
good
are
suppliers.
farm raised.
And that's Buzz and U.S. Foods have been very good to us over the years. And they do a really good job.
Well, this is excellent. Everything's just great.
Unbelievable.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
This may be the best coleslaw I've ever ate. It is really, really good.
You know, the secret to this is that I use sweet pickle juice in it.
Oh, really?
And quite often I have to go out and buy a jar of pickles just to use the juice. And I think if I were Heinz or Mount Olive or Kroger's, where they had a factory making pickles, one day a year I'd shut it down and I'd do nothing but make sweet pickle juice. because every household in this country would buy a jar of it for making their coleslaw, for making the dressing in their potato salad, their macaroni salad, and then go back to making pickles. But I can't convince them to do that, so I have to make it.
The coleslaw that you buy from suppliers, they don't have all of the ingredients in it that we do here. You know, there's just so much difference in it because they.
How do you get it cut so thin and fine? It's cut up real thin.
We use a hand grater.
You're kidding. To get it that
Yeah.
that fine.
If you use a food processor, it's so fine there's really no texture to it. But we use a little hand grater and cut it. It isn't too bad unless it's a Sunday dinner when we're making it, and then you have to use 5 or 6 head of cabbage, and then it gets kind of wearing on your arm.
Okay. Well, Becky, what's coming up for dessert now?
Our apple slab,
Our apple slab.
with
Well,
or without ice cream.
I'm just about ready for it, so whenever you get a chance.
Okay. Dump it on you.
Oh. Okay.
Thank you, Kelsey.
All right. Adam, let's try this one, see what it tastes like.
All
here.
right.
It looks delicious.
I should have made the glaze a little thicker.
No, it looks all right. There's plenty of ice cream to go along with it.
That's true.
Well, I think there's a perfect amount of glaze on it. It feels really good.
It's really good.
A little bit too much cinnamon, though. I used a whole tablespoon because I just
Well, I
like
love cinnamon anyway.
Okay, good.
All right. That cinnamon adds to that apple taste.
Danny got these apples when he went hunting. There's a little hunting camp or a store up there in Tucker County, a country store, and they bring them in by the bushel and half bushel. So he brought me a bushel of
It's a
them.
place called Cool Springs. It's up in Tucker County, and they get all their apples there locally. And they have all the different varieties, you know, the Rome and the, what are they all? Granny Smith, all of them.
Everything.
So I
Cool
always-
Springs is near Parsons or
That
Davis,
is
Thomas.
correct. It's right on the other side of Parsons.
Going up the hill, up in the mountains.
Yes, sir.
Well, there's 2 ways. You can go to Kingwood or you can go on up
That's true.
to Davis. I got a route up through there. We're through there on Wednesdays.
They have antique steam engines there in the yard,
Right.
and there's a filling station there, and that's where they sell those apples. And he usually has all kinds of them, and of course I also buy the apple cider there, which is not pasteurized, and you can make various dishes with that. Becky does a apple cider
donut.
donut.
Oh, is it?
It's delicious.
I bet it is.
That apple cider will put hair on your chest.
Not as bad as that funny vinegar. Okay, I can't eat anymore.
Well, Becky, you've done it again. You've made another great meal here for me and my guest, and I think you've done a great job. I'll keep you for a couple more weeks. It looks
Okay.
like the contract's still
2
not
week
void.
minimum. 2 week
2 week
minimum.
Becky, if he won't keep you, you come to Oak Hill and I'll
Okay.
take you, okay? 'Cause this was excellent.
You open me up a little restaurant in that bowling lane.
Yes.
Well, Adam, I appreciate you and your son Charlie coming down and having dinner with us, and we've really enjoyed having you here, and I love talking to you about the history of that you've been making over the years. You've made history as well in Fayette County and Raleigh and Nicholas County, and I think you're a real good businessman and a good friend, and I appreciate you and your son. And
Thank you, Dan. Nice to meet you today.
glad
Yes,
you
sir.
come and
Totally,
visit with us.
totally fantastic.
Okay.
And we will be back.
Okay, bring your
And
friends and loved
we're
ones.
going to bring some people back.
Okay,
Mark that down.
All right.
If not, send me a bill.
all Good. Thanks for watching, with dining with Dan and Becky at the Glen Ferris Inn. Glad you were able to come and watch us this evening and watch our guests, and we appreciate it. Thank you.
Bye. See you
Bye.
next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.